for the calculation of I think Salesforce SFS.
Mm-hmm.
There you give a formula
Mm-hmm.
TNL TNL divided by S,
Mm-hmm.
right? I figured out that in the formula you said the N, which represent the number of accounts slash calls, was
Mm-hmm.
represented in years, but in the question you solved, it was a monthly. Yeah, it was given as a monthly variable.
Yes.
So I'm wondering why. And I mean, the question said 1 month. So,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually, when you did the calculation, you multiply by 12.
Yeah, can you speak up, please?
I said eventually, when you did the calculation, you multiplied
Mm-hmm.
by 12.
Yeah, because that's what the formula requires. Yeah.
Yes, but the question was 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but during in the calculation, was written as 12. You multiplied by 12. That's my point of confusion.
There's no confusion here because you have to multiply it by 12 or you have to convert it to a yearly basis. The problem
Oh,
can
okay.
tell you whatever it is. You can say per day you multiply it by 365. If it says per week, you multiply it by 52. Problems are always there to confuse you, to make you think. So you have to
Okay,
convert it.
so like in another question, it could be stated in days. So that has to be converted to years.
Yeah, and so, maybe on the exam I'll say every 3 months you meet once. So you multiply that by 4.
I didn't get that. Sorry.
The question might say every 3 months you meet once. So you have to convert that to a yearly number. You have to multiply that by 4. Or if I say every
Okay.
4 months you meet once, you multiply that by 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you.
but sure. Any other questions? Anybody else? Amongst the 51 of you who are in class? Good morning. Okay, looks like we don't have any other questions. So let me pull up my slides. Hmm, okay. So is this where we ended, folks? Okay, right. So let's move forward, assuming you don't have any questions, because I have to cover a lot of ground and this is pricing, so it'll be slow. So we're looking at pricing objectives. Okay, we started out by asking ourselves 2 questions. The first one was what is price, and the second one was why we need to study price. Why is price or pricing important? So I looked at those 2 questions, and then we looked at the importance of price in terms of this little Twitter kind of number that we had. And then we moved forward and we were talking about pricing objectives. After this, we will talk about factors affecting pricing decisions. One of those factors you will see will be pricing objectives. Okay. And when I talk about the factors affecting pricing decisions, I will discuss them sort of one at a time in isolation. But I don't want to get you the feeling, and people get this feeling like, when these are factors that will affect pricing decisions, shouldn't they work together to influence pricing decisions? And the answer is, of course, they should work together to influence pricing decisions. but I'll discuss them kind of independently, and then eventually after one more slide, I'll show you how these things kind of gel together. So that's the plan of action. And again, a lot of information is going to come your way. Just ignore the bottom part. Let's look at the top part and let's move forward. Okay, because again, I cannot control the presentation here. So here we have the factors affecting pricing decisions. Okay, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 factors affecting pricing decisions, and we'll talk about them one at a time. The first factor affecting pricing decision, basically is a combination of two sub-factors, namely organization and marketing objectives. Organization and marketing objectives. So, for example, your goal as an organization could be that you want to be a market contender. You want to compete in the market with the rest, okay, as opposed to ignoring the rest of the players in the marketplace. Your goal could be as an organization to be a low-cost manufacturer. And your goal or your marketing objective could be, for example, to be a mass marketer, that is to sell to everybody, right? So marketing objectives are market contender, mass marketer, and organizational objective could be low-cost manufacturer. Given these objectives, for example, and if you stare at these objectives, you should be able to tell that, well, if you want to be a market contender, you want to compete in the market, or you want to be a mass marketer, that is to sell to everybody, you cannot have prices at the higher end of the price spectrum. You have to have prices at the middle to lower end of the price spectrum. So depending on who you want to be in the marketplace, what kind of player you want to be in the marketplace, you will set your prices accordingly. On the other hand, for example, if you want to, basically project an elite exclusive image in the marketplace, okay, like a Louis Vuitton, then you can go in at a high price, because that is what is going to signal to the consumers that you happen to be a top-end brand. Okay. Now let's look at this low-cost manufacturer, which is an organizational objective oftentimes. So if you happen to be a low-cost manufacturer, then you have a lot of options in the marketplace. You can come in at the lower end of the price spectrum. If this is at the top of the price spectrum, this is at the lower end of the price spectrum, you can come in at the lower end of the price spectrum. So if you think of, for example, a vast majority of the Chinese brands in the marketplace today, most of these manufacturers are low-cost manufacturers, and therefore they can come into the marketplace at a very low price. And that's how basically they can actually go after the mass market. So to repeat, the first factor is a subset of, is a combination of two sub-factors, organization and marketing objectives. Depending on the type of organizational and marketing objectives, basically you go in to the market at the high end of the price spectrum, over here, for example, or at the lower end of the price spectrum. The second factor affecting pricing decision is the second set of factors, that would be your pricing objectives. And we spoke about pricing objectives in the last overhead. Okay, so there's no point in repeating them. We talked about survival, profit maximization, volume oriented, etc., etc., etc. What I've done over here is I've picked 3 of those pricing objectives, and I have color coded them. And the reason is that it shows you, for example, that if you have a volume-oriented pricing objective, then your pricing decision would be to beat the competitors' prices. See, red and red. If, on the other hand, your pricing objective is image-oriented right here, okay, then you would try to avoid your competitors' prices, okay? So you're looking at Louis Vuitton, you want to project a certain type of an image, or Rolls-Royce, you want to project a certain type of an image. You don't care what prices others are setting for similar products. You basically want to stand out in the marketplace, signal through your prices, and essentially you avoid others' prices. Finally, you have the last objective, which is stabilization or status quo. This was the last objective that we saw. And if that is your pricing objective, then your pricing decision should be to meet the competitors' prices. So volume oriented, beat the competitors' prices, beat in terms of lower prices, sorry. If it's image oriented, avoid the competitors' prices. If it is stabilization, that's your objective, then you meet the competitors' prices or match the competitors' prices. Questions before we move forward? Okay, very good. So then you have the most of, okay, Aniza?
Uh, Hello, sir. Sir, I
Yeah.
have a question about this volume-oriented pricing objectives. So, if
Mhm.
my as this is to beat my competitor prices in the lower end, like if my competitor's price is something like 10 USD, then I will set my pricings at the lower point, something like 9 or 8 USD. Is that something like that?
I mean, you can. I mean, here's the thing. Your objective, basically, your pricing objective is basically you want to set your prices to maximize sales volume.
Okay.
Okay. So, ideally, I'm not saying always this has to be the case. You want to beat the other prices, assuming that lower the price, the higher the sales volume,
Yeah.
everything else being constant. So, if it's $10, that the competitors are charging, you may not have to charge $9. You can charge $9 and 98 cents, hoping that those two
Okay.
cents will make a difference. It could be $9.75, hoping that 25 cents will make a difference. So that is a judgment call that you have to make, but you have to keep in mind that, if you want to basically increase or maximize your sales volume, oftentimes that can be done through reduction in prices, reduction compared to competitors' prices. Is that always true? Well, there's nothing absolute in marketing. Okay, there's nothing absolute in marketing, but in general, on the average, that is how we handle these issues. Okay,
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
so let's move. Sure. So let's move forward and let's look at the other three or four options that we have. The next one is the next factor, which is, I guess, intuitively obvious. It's costs. Under normal circumstances, you will not price your product below its cost under normal circumstances. But does it mean that nobody prices their products below cost? No, I'm not saying that. We will talk about something that's called loss leader pricing. And essentially, that is where you price your product below cost. And there are reasons as to why you do that. And there are situations as to when you do that. But under normal circumstances, the costs will give you the floor below which you cannot go in terms of setting prices. The fourth factor is something that we actually have discussed before. If you recall, we talked about this brand, Kia Stinger, in this class, okay? And, here we have basically the issue of buyer's perception, okay? Buyer's perception in terms of product perception, in terms of price perceptions, right? So we talked about Kia, and, the discussion basically, told me that you see Kia as a sort of a regularly priced product, and that you're not willing to pay more than $18,000, $20,000 for a Kia. Okay, its quality is it's fine, good, but it's not an exclusive or an exotic or a luxury car, and that actually influenced your price acceptability. You said $20,000, maybe $22,000, no more than that. Okay, and then I told you about this Kia Stinger, which is now priced from, let's say, 33 to 52. And I said, wow, I mean, that's kind of the higher end. They're calling it a luxury vehicle. So Kia's job has to basically be, Kia's job will be to change the product perception that we have of this particular brand. The moment we think of that as a possible luxury brand, it is at that time we will say, okay, $35,000 is not a bad price for Kia. $40,000 is not a bad price for Kia. 50 is a little on the high side, but it's a luxury brand. So buyer perception plays an important role, extremely important role in basically your pricing decisions. Here we have, I think this is an example of, I think, a Hyundai, if I'm not mistaken. It's the same issue with Hyundai. Hyundai has $65,000, $70,000 cars. Okay, if you were to ask me, are you going to pay ever, if you can afford to $65,000 or $70,000 for a Hyundai? I'm going to say no way. It doesn't mean it's a bad car. It's a wonderful car, but my perception is that it's not worth $70,000. So Hyundai's challenge is to change my perception and therefore my price acceptability. Okay. Then your pricing decision also varies on the basis of competition you face in the marketplace. So to understand the nature of competition that you face in the marketplace and how pricing decisions can vary, let us look at product life cycle on the next page. Once we do that, we will move forward actually and we will look at, we will put all these factors together. So, because we're not going to come back, let's talk about this one, the last point over here, legal issues, and then let's move forward. So legal issues. Speaking of cars, California as a state has stricter emission standards than any other or most other states in the US. So what happens because of that is that you have to have some emissions control in the cars that you sell in California. So even if it is a small part that goes into the car, you have to add that part to this car, it increases the price of that vehicle. Okay, so what I'm trying to get at is that these laws will oftentimes increase prices of products, but they don't increase prices all the time. Sometimes actually they keep prices of products in check. How so? Well, let's think in terms of the utility company that we have in this area that supplies us with electricity and gas. Okay, they cannot increase their rates just because they want to. They have to go through this thing called the Utility Commission and get their permission to increase rates. Okay, in a lot of states, for example, the cable companies providing you with cable and Wi-Fi, they cannot just arbitrarily increase their rates. There are regulatory agencies that will actually keep their rates at a reasonable level. So if they want to increase their rates, they'll have to kind of go through those regulatory agencies and justify the rate increase. And if the agencies agree or the agency agrees, then you can increase your rates. So legal issues oftentimes can result in moving your prices up. Sometimes it will basically bring it down, but most often when you have legal issues, the prices are likely to go up. Okay, so let's move forward now and let's look at competition. Okay, and then we will put all these factors together. So here is the story regarding product life cycle and pricing, and we are essentially looking at this because we're interested in examining how the competitive forces in the marketplace can affect your pricing decisions. The critical phase here, folks, is the introductory phase. In the introduction phase, you can either go high in terms of setting your price, or you can go low in terms of setting your price, okay? Which is not telling you much, except several slides forward, we will talk about something called price skimming, which is setting high prices as you enter the market, or penetration pricing, which is setting price at the low end as you enter the market. And I'll tell you when to do that and when not to do those kinds of things. So the critical decision happens in the introduction phase. Should I go in at the high end of the price spectrum? Okay, if this is the price spectrum at this end, or should I go in at the low end of the price spectrum? Once you go in, then what happens is, as you can see, the pressure on price starts to build up and it goes in a downward direction. Why? Because look at the growth stage. Price declines due to competition, because in the growth stage you have more competition, and as a result of which prices are likely to come down because of competitive pressure. There is another reason as to why price decreases or might decrease in the growth phase, and that's due to something known as economy of scale. Okay, now because of time, I guess, related issues, I'm not going into the discussion of economy of scale. Let me just explain this to you. If you don't understand, ask. Economy of scale. The basic idea is the more you produce, the better you get, or the more efficient you get in producing the product, as a result of which the per unit cost of production goes down. That's the economy of scale. Scale means size. When you produce in small quantities, the prices might be higher. When you produce in large quantities, the per unit prices are likely down. Okay, when you produce in large quantities, then per unit prices are likely to go down. Any questions about economy of scale? Okay, so another way that I kind of explain this economy of scale, and it has nothing to do with prices, but as students can connect with this, I'm going to try explaining this. Hopefully you'll be able to connect. Okay, let's say you have moved into a new home, new apartment, and you need to get like blinds for the window for privacy's sake. Not these curtains, but blinds that you attach at the top of the window. You get blinds or shades for the windows for the sake of privacy. And you have decided to go to basically the store and get those blinds because these are standard windows, buy them, and you want to kind of set them up yourself. Okay, so that's your goal. So you bring those blinds home and you are now setting those blinds up. And in most cases, what will happen is the first blind, if you're not into setting up blinds, it's going to take a long time to put the blind in its place properly. As you move forward from the first blind to the second blind to the third to the 15th to the 20th blind, you will see you're doing the same job at a much, much, much faster pace. Okay, and that's because of the experience that you have gained in terms of holding it there, making sure that it is level, and then kind of putting in the screws, and you do it at a much faster pace. Okay, so that's the idea of experience, gaining experience, and how that can, in this example, save you time. Likewise, when you're producing products, experience basically can save you money. It's not only experience, there are other reasons as to why you can achieve economy of scale, but let me leave it at that. So essentially, in the growth stage, price can decline due to two reasons. One is because of competition. Number two is because of economy of scale. Now, in the maturity phase, you're producing more. Maybe the increase in production is not as intense, but you're still producing more. You're selling more, but there is still a downward pressure on price. Why? Because competition is at the highest level in the maturity phase. Okay. Now, what happens in the decline phase is kind of interesting. In the decline phase, because people are not buying your product, eventually you're looking at kind of phasing your product out of the marketplace, price begins to decline. However, if you happen to be the last one standing in the marketplace, your product becomes a specialty good, and the price might increase. Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, this is Suman. Sir, my question is regarding user reviews. After the introduction phase, if there are positive user reviews, and then the company might decide to increase the price during the growth stage, is that not a possibility?
It is always a possibility, but you have to be very careful because others are coming in. They might have good user reviews also, right? And
Yes, sir.
if that cancels out, then if you raise your I guess prices, there might be a little kind of a user backlash, if you will, that what is going on? Why are they increasing their prices? Okay, so we have in pricing this concept of, and of course this is not something that we're going to discuss over here in details. It's called just noticeable difference, JND. When you increase your prices and it's below that just noticeable difference, oftentimes consumers kind of don't see it, even though the price has increased. Okay, some very highly price sensitive consumers might see it, but in general, people won't. So oftentimes what happens is when they're increasing prices in the marketplace, next time you go to the grocery store, check it out, if the price has gone up, it has gone up, to a point which is below the JND. Not only that, if they're decreasing the size of the packaging, and they do that, keeping the price constant, it doesn't decline below the noticeable level. It basically stays, in terms of decline, stays above the just noticeable difference.
Yes, sir. All right, sir.
Okay,
Thank
so
you,
Devika, you had a question?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Good. So let's move forward. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, so now what we will do is that we will kind of put together, and I wish I could do it like one I guess factor at a time. That makes it easier to understand. Okay, and add some suspense into the whole process, but it is not going to happen. So you're going to see the whole slide at one time, where we will kind of look at the factors affecting pricing decisions. So here are the factors basically affecting pricing decisions. So the slide you have probably doesn't have these things. You have this top line, which is the ceiling. as you can see over here. And then you have the bottom line, which is the floor, as you can see over here. Amongst those 5 or 6 factors that you have seen a couple of slides ago, your floor is given by the cost. As I said, you should not, under normal circumstances, price your product below your cost. The ceiling is given by the price acceptability or the price that consumers are willing to pay. We cannot charge a price that I'm not willing to pay on the average. Okay, so that is the ceiling above which you cannot go. Okay, so this is, folks, the initial range within which you're going to set your prices. Okay, this is your initial range. Now you see what happens in the marketplace is that regulatory forces will push up the floor, okay, and competitive forces will push down the ceiling. And so now you have a much smaller range within which you can set your prices. This is the final range. The specific price that you set within that final range is going to be a function of your objectives, your corporate objectives and your pricing objectives. These are the 2 points that are listed on that page, the very first 2 points. Pricing, objectives, corporate objective, I'm using this term over here. On that page, I had organization and marketing objectives. So that would be subsumed under corporate objectives. Any questions? This is how all these factors that we saw one slide ago or 2 slides ago can combine together to influence pricing decisions. Yes?
What's the influence of the regulatory bodies on the price?
Well, when you have rules and regulations, you have to have higher standards, emission standards. It increases the price. Okay, if for example they're building these 4-story apartment complexes in the city that you come from in Ghana, okay, and the rule says you have to have, if it's 4 stories or more, you have to have elevators installed, so the cost of the builder goes up. Okay, if they say you have to use a certain grade of builder cement and it's expensive, the cost of building goes up. Yes.
Sir, there might be the possibility of increment in the rates of the raw materials which going to be converted into the final one. So will it be considered as the cost enhancement?
So say that again.
So sir, there might be the possibility that raw material cost will be increased, which will be in turn give us result by increase the cost of the final product. So apart from the regulatory factor, we can consider it as a factor that can raise the cost.
Yeah, but the thing is, the cost in the sense, I mean, you have kind of done the accounting and you know how much the cost. In the process of building your product, if raw materials go up, and that can happen in case of these big projects like building roads and building buildings, all right? That has to be factored in. Now, where the costs are kind of stable, the inflation is not much as in the US. This is a non-issue, but in other parts of the world where the currency is not that strong, the currency loses its value and you're importing stuff, costs will go up. Things can get bad. So maybe in the contract, you include this escalation clause, and I have to sign that. You have to agree to it. You cannot just arbitrarily increase the price.
Okay, sir. Okay, got it.
So, yeah, like for example, speaking of regulatory forces, I was talking to somebody who's thinking of buying, an apartment in the greater Mumbai area. And there they have now regulations, that basically, in the old days in India there was no regulations whatsoever. I mean, when they sold these buildings, they would basically tell you this is 1,000 square feet, and your apartment never had 1,000 square feet. They would include, they basically look at the stair space, for example, in the common spaces, and if there are like 16 apartments, they divide that space by 16 and add it to your square footage. So they were talking in terms of super built area, and now the regulation says that no, you cannot basically talk in terms of or sell in terms of the super built area. You have to sell in terms of the carpeted area. Okay, and so to do these measurements, to make sure they're keeping track of things, they have to hire people, so that increases costs. So regulations are good, but sometimes they can increase costs, but otherwise regulations can be really good. They're protecting the consumers.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move forward. And now let's look at what shall we look at? Okay. All right. So now, Dare, what's going on?
Sorry, sir. I didn't get the explanation on the objectives when you were trying to explain the corporate and the pricing system. So,
Well, look at 2 slides back. Look at those objectives, and then we'll talk about this after the class is over. We talked about organization and marketing objectives. We talked about pricing objectives.
yes.
Pricing objectives, volume oriented beat. So if it's beat, then you come down on prices in this range. If it is image oriented, you avoid, then you basically have the right to choose whatever point you choose within this. Okay. If it's
Thank you.
stabilization, you basically within this range match Walmart's prices. So go back 1 slide, it'll become clear. So I've just put all those things together on this slide. And if you still have confusion, we will talk about this after the class is over. Okay, so I have just used the postponement method of handling questions. All right. So let's move forward and let's pretend that we are now economists. Just to give you a heads up, my undergrad degree was in economics honors, and then I did a master's in economics, but that was in the 1970s. Okay, so if you're expecting a whole lot of economics from me, it's not going to happen. I don't remember most of those things. All right. So I will just keep things at a very basic level. We will talk about 4 different things. Okay, and yeah, 4 different things. So we'll talk about the law of demand, and then we'll talk about demand curve, and third, we'll talk about elasticity of demand, and fourth, we'll look at something very interesting and important. Okay, so let's look at the law of demand. The law of demand, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It says price and quantity demanded are inversely related, which means when price goes up, quantity demanded. So when price goes up, quantity demanded goes down, and vice versa, which means that when price actually goes down, quantity demanded will go up. That's the law of demand. Price and quantity demanded are inversely related. Is it always that way? No. But in a vast majority of the cases, price and quantity demanded are inversely related. Questions? Okay. We will come back to this slide, but let's move a slide or two forward and let's talk about the demand curve. Demand curve is a pictorial depiction of the law of demand. It is a graphical depiction of the law of demand curve. Okay, so when you look at the law of demand, actually you can, this relationship that we just talked about, it can be plotted, on a or in a graph. So let's look at that. So here is the standard straight line demand curve. Okay, as you can see, this is negatively sloping. It is coming from the northwestern part to the southeastern part. If you think of a compass, and this is north, oops, this is north and this is south, this is east, and this is west. Okay, so this is your demand curve or demand line in this case. And as you can see, when the price of the product is $10, the demand is 100, is it 100,000? No, 1 million units, like 10 and then this many zeros, okay? But when the price goes up to $15 a piece, demand now falls, and it falls to 500,000 units from 1 million units. Okay, that's the way you look at the law of demand. Okay, so price goes up, demand falls, or if you start over here, it's $15 a piece, demand is 500,000. The moment the price comes down to $10 a piece, demand actually now increases to 1 million units. That's the law of demand, represented in a curve. Questions? Is it only applicable to elastic demand? No, it applies to inelastic demand also. We'll talk about that elasticity. Basically, the slope of the curve will change. The more elastic the demand is, the flatter it is. This is perfectly elastic. The more inelastic demand is, the steeper the slope is, and this is going to be perfectly inelastic. Okay. So the demand curve, we have looked at this, the traditional one, the line, and here is something that is non-traditional. Not all demand curves are downward sloping. Okay. So prestigious products or services have upward sloping curves. So what happens is that for prestigious products, okay, demand actually goes up as price goes up to a point. And then after that, if price still goes up, then the demand actually falls. Okay? So essentially what is happening here is, if you look at it from the other direction, and that is going to be my green line, if you look at it from this direction, okay, essentially as price goes down, demand actually goes up, okay? And then after a point, which is over here, when price goes down, demand actually falls. So this is that interesting case of the $29,000 Cadillac. Cadillacs are perceived as expensive and luxury vehicles, okay? And they actually introduced a $29,000 Cadillac for basically either the lower end of the price spectrum to catch the younger buyers, and it was summarily rejected because people quite didn't associate luxury with $29,000. Questions? Very nice. So now we will move a little backward and then forward. We'll talk about two things, okay? We'll talk about elasticity of demand, which reflects how sensitive demand is to change in the price of a product. And then we'll talk about relationship between price and total revenue. Why do we need to do that? Because ultimately it affects profits under three types of demand situations. We don't yet know what those three types of demand situations are, but shortly we will know what these types are. So let's talk about elasticity of demand, reflects how sensitive demand is to change in price, and then we'll look at number 4. Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's look at elasticity of demand. I can go to the next page. Everything will jump out at you. Let me try this. No, I mean, let me just show it to you. Okay. Why is it happening like this? Oops. What happened? Okay. All right. So I want you to focus on this formula first. Price elasticity of demand. Okay. Price elasticity of demand is given by the following formula: percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. So folks, first of all, let's look at elasticity. What does it mean? Think of a rubber band. Think of a rubber band that you might have right here in front of you in your study desk, and you hold this rubber band and you pull it. Some rubber bands will stretch a lot. It's very elastic. Some rubber bands are very tight. They will not stretch a lot. That's inelastic, okay? That's where the concept comes from, okay? So essentially, when we looked at elasticity of demand, it's basically we're looking at how sensitive demand is, whether it's this sensitive or whether it is this sensitive to changes in the price of the product, okay? So that is given by this formula: percentage change in quantity demanded by percentage change in price. So let me explain this concept of elasticity. Suppose the price of Budweiser beer, okay? Suppose the price of Budweiser beer goes up by 10%. What will happen to its demand? It's going to fall. Suppose the price of Budweiser beer has gone up by 10%, okay, this much, this is 10%, okay? And the demand for Budweiser has fallen by a lot more than this much, that is by 15%. You with me? So percentage change in price is only this, if you can see this, my hand, see the two fingers, the gap, and the percentage change in demand is way bigger, okay? Then basically we can say that Budweiser has an elastic demand. That is, changes in demand for Budweiser is very sensitive. Look at this, very sensitive to the changes in price of Budweiser. So that is what we have in number 1 over here, which is my purple line. EP, price elasticity, is greater than 1. It's elastic demand. So price of Budweiser has gone up by 10%. Demand has fallen by more than 10%, which is 15%. So 15 over 10, that is more than 1. We can think of it in the other direction also. We are talking about prices going up and demand falling. We can think in terms of price going down by 10% and demand increasing by more than 10%, by 15%. Okay, that also reflects elastic demand. Questions? So in the first instance, percentage change in quantity demanded is 15. Percentage change in price is 10. So that's greater than 1.5. There is something missing in the formula. Can somebody guess what is missing? $100? No. I mean, 100, maybe you can convert that. There's something, no, not time. So the law of demand says what? Price and quantity are inversely related, right? Price and quantity are inversely related. There's a negative relation, right? You agree with me? Okay. So technically there should be a negative sign when it comes to elasticity, but we just don't use it because we know it's a negative relationship. Okay. Any questions on elastic demand? All right, let's move forward and let's look at inelastic demand. This is going to be my red line. So let's take the Budweiser example. So what is happening over here? Somebody tell me. Jagrup, tell me what's happening with Budweiser. Jagrup, you have your hand up.
Sorry, sir, it was by mistake.
Okay. So what is happening for inelastic demand? Somebody look at these numbers. Let's talk about the Budweiser example.
So for the 10%, only 5% change is there in the pricing.
Okay, so when you say for the 10%, let's be specific. The price of Budweiser changes by 10%. Let's say it goes up by 10%. You with me? Price, look at my hand. The price of Budweiser goes up by 10%, this much. Right? Ambika?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the demand for Budweiser, the price has gone up by 10%. The demand for Budweiser falls, but it falls by less than 10%. You see this? Okay. Yes. So essentially, that is inelastic demand. The demand for Budweiser is not that sensitive to changes in the price. So in this case, it is going to be 5 over here and 10 over here. And that's why it is less than 1.
Yes.
Okay. So let me give you another example of inelastic demand. Let's say, I take medication for headache, 1 pill every day. You with me, Ambika? So the doctor has told me you got to take this 1 pill every day for your headache problem. Okay, I don't take it, I'm just manufacturing this example. So let's say the price of that particular tablet doubles. What am I going to do? Like take a tablet every other day and die of headache faster? No, I have to take that one medication every day, right? So my demand for that medication is basically not at all sensitive to changes in the price. On the other hand, if the price of that tablet goes down, it's like half. Instead of $1, it's like 50 cents. I'm not going to take 2 tablets every day because the price is half. I'm going to take that same 1 tablet. So in this case, basically my demand is perfectly inelastic. It is not at all sensitive to changes in the price of that medication.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully, as pharmacy students, you will be able to connect with this example.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir.
Finally, what happens is, we have this situation. This is my blue line. Okay, a unitary elastic demand where EP is equal to 1. See what happens over here is the price of Budweiser goes up by 10%. Demand falls for Budweiser, but by exactly the same percentage point, 10%. 10, 10, and therefore this is equal to 1. It's 10 over here. It's 10 over here, and they cancel out. It is equal to 1. Questions? Okay, let's move forward and let's look at elasticity, price change, and revenue, the relation. This is number 4. So here is the question that you need to drill into your head. The question is, what happens to total revenue? What happens to total revenue when price either goes down or 2, it goes up in the 3 different elasticity conditions, that is EP greater than 1, elastic demand, EP less than 1, inelastic demand, EP equal to 1, unitary elastic demand. You get me? What happens to total revenue when price either goes up or goes down in the 3 different elasticity conditions? Okay, so I'll tell you what happens, but I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go into the explanation because this is not an econ class and we just don't have the time. Okay, so let's look at my colorful slide on the next page. Okay, so what do we have over here, folks? We have, can somebody tell me what we have over here? If you look at the columns,
Price elasticity.
Price elasticity. So price elasticity is greater than 1. So this is EP greater than 1. Elastic demand, right? This is price elasticity less than 1. So this is inelastic demand. And here you have price elasticity equal to 1. So this is unitary elastic demand. And we studied these in the last overhead, or the one before that. You with me? So if you look at the question, it says, what happens to total revenue when either price goes down? So this is what we're talking about, price decrease, or it goes up under these 3 different conditions. So look what happens. Let's look at elasticity greater than 1, that is elastic demand. So we're looking at the green column. This is messed up, so please be careful. When price goes up, increases, this is where the arrow should come. Okay, total revenue goes down, and when price decreases, this is where the arrow should come. Total revenue increases. So folks, when the demand for a product is elastic, okay, the relationship between price and total revenue is inverse. When price goes up, total revenue, TR, goes down, and vice versa. The relationship between price and total revenue is inverse. But when price elasticity is less than 1, that is, demand is inelastic, the relationship between price over here, see, this one comes to this place, this one goes to this place, okay? The relationship between price and total revenue is direct, is positive. When price goes up, total revenue will also go up, inelastic demand. When price goes down, total revenue will also go down, inelastic demand. But when you look at price elasticity equal to 1, unitary elastic demand, you can see whether price goes up or whether it goes down, total revenue remains the same, no change, nothing, zero, zilch. So the best way to remember this is, as follows. The purple column where price elasticity is equal to 1, unitary elastic, basically nothing happens when price goes up or price goes down in terms of total revenue. The total revenue remains the same. When it's the green column, that is price elasticity is greater than 1, elastic demand, the relationship between price and total revenue is inverse. Okay? But in the orange column, the relationship between price and total revenue, and this is in the inelastic demand condition, they are direct or positive, so they go both in this direction or they both go in this direction. Questions? To answer why, I have to do math, and I don't have the time to do math in this class.
Prof, I got an example. You gave an example for the price elasticity. Can you give an example for inelastic?
I just gave you
Inelastic.
two examples for price inelasticity.
Yes.
I gave you,
Talk. Hello.
yeah, I'm
Two.
listening.
Okay. Two examples. Yes.
No, I gave
Yes.
you two examples already.
Okay.
The second one was
So
my headache medication example.
yes, I got that. I'm talking about the last one. Can you give one example? That would be
Which one? Price elasticity equal to 1?
yes.
Well, there's no specific example, and you can take any product. Okay,
Okay.
if the price of this Slap Your Mama goes up by 10%, my demand for this will fall by 10% exactly.
Okay.
If the price of this goes down by 10%, my demand for this will basically go up by 10%. And you can fit any product over here. See, when you talk about price elasticity, inelastic, elastic, the examples that I gave you are just examples that one
All
can
right.
relate to. It doesn't mean that in case of medicine, for example, people might not take 2 pills or take half the pill. Actually, the poor people,
Okay.
when the cost of medication goes up significantly, they don't take medication every day because they cannot afford to do it. So
Sure.
it's
Thank you.
not that basically product X elastic demand, product Y inelastic demand. This beer example that I gave you, for Budweiser maybe demand is elastic, but for, let's say, Heineken, maybe the demand is inelastic. Price goes up by 10%, demand falls, but by only 1% because people love Heineken. When let's say the price falls by 10%, consumption will go up. It's beer. How many bottles can you drink? I mean, you cannot drink like 10% more. Maybe you're drinking a little bit more. Maybe consumption goes up by 1%. So it's inelastic demand. So the fundamental thing that you need to keep in mind is elasticity has to do with how sensitive demand is to changes in the price of the product. If it is very sensitive, price changes by this much, demand changes by that much, elastic. If price changes by this much and demand only changes by that much, it's inelastic. And if price changes by this much and demand also changes by this much, it is unitary elastic demand.
Okay, Prof.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
All right. So let's move forward and let's look at cost and revenue concepts, and we'll bring them together. So here we go. So here are the 4 different cost concepts. Variable cost, VC. It's the cost that varies in direct proportion to the number of units produced or sold. So let's talk about production of cars. So you have a factory, right? It's all installed, the machinery you have bought, so it's all sitting there. You with me? Somebody say yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So because of COVID, let's say your production has stopped. You still have to pay the bank the money that you borrowed to construct the factory. But you don't have to buy parts to build the car. You don't have to pay the assembly line workers to assemble the car. So essentially what happens is variable cost is cost that varies in direct proportion to the number of units produced or sold. So when you're producing cars, your variable cost basically changes because now you're buying the doors and windows and glass and wiper blades, the tires, and you're paying people to assemble those cars. When you're not producing cars, those costs are not there. It's your basically building costs, your machinery cost, your electricity cost, because the building has to be heated and lighted. That's what you're paying. So variable costs are those that vary in direct proportion to the number of units produced or sold. Fixed costs would be costs that do not change with changes in activity over a relevant range of production. Okay, if you want to double your production, you might have to buy another machine. So it's a different story. And a given period of time. That is, now this is your fixed cost. Tomorrow new technology might come out which will make your production efficient, but you'll have to invest in this new technology, so your fixed costs can go up over time. But fixed cost is cost that does not change with changes in activity over a relevant range of production and a given time frame. Any questions about variable cost and fixed costs? Okay. Now we'll talk about marginal cost and marginal revenue. If you recall, I think in the last class I said, you know what? Profit is maximized when your marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. And we will look at that shortly. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So marginal cost is the extra cost that a firm incurs when it produces one more unit of a product. So let me give you an example. Suppose this is what I produce, this spicy salt. You with me? Let's suppose to produce 100 of these cans, it costs me $200. Please listen carefully. To produce 100 of these cans, it costs me $200. But when I produce the 101st can, the total cost goes up from $200 to $201. So what is my marginal cost? The cost of producing this can at the margin, the last can.
$1.
$1. So 100 cans, okay, the cost, total cost was $200. You with me? 200. And then I produced the next one, 101 cans, okay, and the total cost is 201. So the marginal cost is the difference between these two, $1, right? You with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Marginal revenue, let's look at this. So let's say that I was selling these cans, 100 cans, okay, at $400 total revenue. You with me?
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
I'm selling 101 cans, okay, 101 cans, and my total revenue is $402. So what is the marginal revenue? At the margin, how much have I made on this can? The last can? $2, right? Okay, good. So now tell me this. At the margin, my cost was $1. At the margin, my revenue is $2. You with me over here? Okay, $1 and $2. Okay, should I produce this can and sell it in the marketplace?
Yes, sir.
At the margin, the cost is $1. At the margin, the cost, the revenue is $2. So I'm spending $1 on that last can, but I'm bringing in $2. Should I manufacture that can and sell it?
Yes.
Yes,
The
sir.
answer is yes, because I am adding $1 to profit. 2 minus 1 is 1. I'm adding $1 to profit.
Yes, sir.
So basically, the story is very simple. You keep on producing and you keep on selling till you are adding even one single penny to your profit. And profit is maximized when you're not adding anything else. And beyond that, you might be eating away from your profit. So you stop production there and stop selling there. Questions? So here is the example that I just used. Okay, so please look at this carefully. It's very easy to understand. You have this chart. Okay, so I'm producing, okay, so marginal analysis, profit is maximized at the point where MR is equal to MC. So look at this. Units. I'm producing 100 units of, let's say, this Slapia Mama thing. Okay, total cost is $100 and I'm selling them at $2 a piece. It's $200 total revenue. You with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
101 units, see, for efficiency of production, economy of scale, now, you know, the per unit cost is not $1, it has gone down. So to produce 101 units, total cost is $100.75, okay? So the marginal cost, which is the difference between this number and that number, okay, is 75 cents. Now there's competition in the marketplace. You know, we are selling these at $2 a piece. Now we aren't selling them at $2 a piece. Last one, okay, just to give you keep it clean, it's $1.50. So total revenue is $201.50. So the revenue at the margin is the difference between these two numbers. It is $1.50. Okay, so my contribution to profit, because it's profit, I'm going to do it green, is 75 cents on this 101st unit. 75 cents. So the revenue at the margin is the difference between these two numbers. It is $1.50. Okay, so my contribution to profit, because it's profit, I'm going to do it green, is 75 cents on this 101st unit. 75 cents. So the revenue at the margin is the difference between these two numbers. It is $1.50. Okay, so my contribution to profit, because it's profit, I'm going to do it green, is 75 cents on this You with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now for the 102nd unit, likewise, if the total cost is $101.25, so your marginal cost is now at the margin it is 50 cents. Here I'm not going to repeat everything. At the margin, your marginal revenue is $1. So what is happening is that in terms of contribution to profit, by selling that 102nd unit, you're adding 50 cents to profit. Likewise, for the 103rd unit, you're adding 25 cents to the profit. But when you get to the 104th unit, guess what? Your marginal cost is 15 cents. Your marginal revenue is 15 cents. So there's no difference over here. So you are not adding anything to profit. So this is where you stop producing and selling. That's the story of marginal analysis. This can be demonstrated through use of calculus, but again, this is a marketing class. We're not even going in that direction. Questions?
Sir, so it means that in the unit we are producing, I mean that we have the capacity of producing only the 103 units, right, sir?
No. We have capacity to produce more. So
Yes.
we'll produce 104. That's why we know now that we're not adding, we'll stop. We can make 110, but what will happen over there is marginal revenue might be less than the marginal cost. So now instead of positive number, it'll become a negative number. That's a
Okay.
negative 50.
Okay,
So
so we are.
now it's, you're eating away from your profit.
Oh, okay.
You may not be
So
making a loss, but you're eating away from your profit. Why would you want to do that? Well, you can argue that, well, I want to do that because I want to drive the small competitors out of business. Okay, legally, fine, do it. But I'm just kind of trying to keep it clean. That, you don't want to go below zero in terms of contribution to profit. You don't want to make a negative contribution.
okay, now got it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So let's move forward and let's look at, you are confused. Why are you confused, Dare?
The total revenue for the second column, for the second row. Yeah, I can see that from the first row. From the first row, you said the total revenue for 100 units was 200. The second row for extra one unit production, you add a total cost of 100.75. So that means the 0.75 was the marginal cost for the extra production of one unit. So my confusion is why do we have 1.50 for the total revenue?
Because basically total revenue is what it is. It's just a number. Let's assume that I sold all one of the 101st unit at $1.50, not at $2. That's why my total revenue is $201.50 because of competition.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to make it $201.75, I can make it. So the contribution to profit will be $1.
Okay, so it's not like there was any calculation, it's just a generic figure. There's no calculation involved.
Yeah, these are just example numbers.
Okay. So I was just wondering how,
These are all example numbers, just to show you what happens in terms of contribution to profit.
Okay, so in
And
this
to show
sense,
you this relationship, that you're not adding anything to profit when marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost.
okay. So, thank you.
Okay. So let's move forward and let's look at break-even analysis. And then we'll look at target return pricing. We'll work on problems. All right, so break-even analysis, essentially, we're calculating break-even point. And that's the point at which your total revenue is equal to your total cost. Keep that in mind. So you're not making money, you're not losing money, your total revenue is equal to your total cost. So before I look at the formula over here, let me explain this picture. So here we are talking about hotel rooms, and this is your fixed cost, $100,000. Okay, this is your revenue line, the green one. So this is your revenue line. Okay, so when you don't sell any rooms, your revenue is zero. Okay, and then this is your total cost line. Basically, it's sum total of your fixed cost and your variable cost. When you don't rent a room, your variable cost is zero. As you rent more rooms, your variable cost keeps going up. Over here is your break-even point. This is where, as you can see, revenue, total revenue is equal to your total cost. Okay. Bottom left corner, this is your zone of loss. And the top right corner, this is your zone of profit. Why is this your zone of profit? Because your total revenue line over here is above the total profit line. Okay. So if you want to interpret the numbers, basically what we are saying is that when you rent out 2,500 rooms at, let's say, $50 per room, you basically are bringing in $125,000. And this also happens to be your total cost. This is where you're breaking even, right? So in business, we use this to ensure that we're not losing money. But business is not about not losing money. Business is about making profits. Okay. So in the next formula, we will add profit and we'll show you how to calculate the numbers. But first, of course, survival is the key. So you want to make sure that you are not losing any money. Okay. So here something has vanished over here. So let me tell you what it is. So BEP, break-even point in terms of quantity, the quantity or sales volume at which you're going to break even is fixed cost in the numerator divided by, there should be a parenthesis over here, P minus UVC, which is in the denominator. So BPQ is break-even point in terms of quantity. P is the price at which you're selling the product. Unit variable cost is UVC. It doesn't say over here because of reformatting. So UVC is, write this down, unit variable cost per unit. Variable cost per unit. Okay? Unit variable cost. Do we have the formula? Okay. Now let's look at, before we address a problem, let's look at a formula which incorporates profit into this equation. Very simple. We just call it by using a different name. It's called target return pricing. Target return, that's your profit. So TRP, target return pricing, this quantity, how many you have to sell. You see this formula, we had fixed cost previously divided by P minus UVC. Now what we have done is in the numerator, if I can draw the line over here, in the numerator I have added to fixed cost, and I'll make it green because it's profit. Now we have added the target profit to fixed cost. Okay, so TRPQ, this is target return pricing in terms of quantity that you have to sell to make a certain amount of profit. Okay, P is price, UVC is unit variable cost. So now, folks, why don't we look at the next problem and see if you can solve it? Well, the problem is it is already solved. So that is the problem. Okay, it makes no sense to teach this way, but anyways. So here is the problem. So solve this. The first two lines are done. Megan owns a company which produces shampoos. Okay. Suppose that Megan's fixed cost is $300,000. Fixed cost is $300,000 and UVC is $2, that is unit variable cost is $2.50. Suppose Megan sells each shampoo bottle to Walmart for $5. What is Megan's break-even point in terms of quantity? That is, how many bottles of shampoo Megan has to sell to Walmart to not make any losses? Forget profit. To not make any losses, to break even. Total revenue is equal to total cost. So you see over here you have, this is fixed cost 300,000 divided by, this is P minus UVC. So break-even point in terms of quantity is 300,000 divided by 2.5. So what is it? What's the number? How many units Megan has to sell?
120,000.
120,000. That is correct. So this is your answer. Any questions? Yes, Sandra, isn't it fun? Yeah, Dara, just ask, man. The way you raise your hand, I look at the text, it kills time.
Okay, sir. The UVC, I just wanted to ask, you said it's the unit variable cost.
Mhm.
So, can you please explain more to me about the unit variable? Is it talking about um that is the change in each of the variable, like each of the units sold, each the unit of the product sold?
No, no. Oh, unit variable cost. So we have fixed cost, we have variable cost. Cost is cost, right? It's the
Yes.
variable cost. So if you're producing this and marketing this, okay, you have a factory, which is your fixed cost, right?
Okay.
So to produce this, what would be the variable costs that you wouldn't incur those costs you didn't if you didn't produce it? So what are the components of this thing that I'm holding in my hand, Dari?
Absolutely. I can't even see. Slap
Sorry?
your. So I'm
Huh?
trying to see what it is. What's
No,
this?
no, whatever it is, this is that the slap your mama salt,
Oh,
spicy salt.
pepper,
Huh?
pepper, pepper, right? Pepper.
Well, pepper, yeah. I mean, so what is in here? This is a product that I'm producing. What goes into this thing besides the factory, the fixed costs? What do I have to
The
buy to produce this?
the can.
I have to buy the can. What else?
Um, the wrapper, maybe the wrapper or something.
What else? I mean, there's something inside that I'm selling because people are not going to eat the can or the wrapper, right?
The pepper, right?
So we have to buy the salt. We have to buy the red pepper, black pepper, garlic. Okay, those are spices that we have to buy,
Okay.
right? So there's a cost involved with that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a cost that basically associated with whatever the spices are in this can, the can itself, the wrapper, and basically the cover and all these things.
Okay.
That's the cost, unit variable cost. That's basically per unit cost of this product. Minus, of course, you haven't added the fixed cost.
Okay. So the unit variable cost has to do with the cost of each of the components of the products.
Yeah, and plus you have to add the guy, the salary of the guy, the hourly salary divided across all these cans. You're making any cost that changes per unit, basically. When you produce this thing, people are working on the factory assembly line, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that the salary, one day's salary is $100,000, but you're producing 1 million of these things. So you say,
Hmm.
oh, okay, then per can, in terms of salary, this is the cost. So you add that to the cost of the pepper and the can and the salt and the garlic and all these things. So that's unit variable cost. Okay, let's move forward. If you have questions, catch me after class.
Okay.
So here's the next slide. Target return pricing. So this I haven't calculated. You guys do it quickly. You have 2 minutes. It's the same problem. Megan owns a company which produces shampoos. Suppose that Megan's fixed cost is $300,000, the same number as before. Unit variable cost is $2.50. Suppose Megan sells each shampoo bottle to Walmart for $5, same number as before. Now we're talking about Megan making a profit of $1.5 million. What is Megan's TRPQ? In other words, how many shampoo bottles will Megan have to sell to Walmart to make a $1.5 million profit? So all we have done here is, folks, added the expected profit to the fixed cost in the numerator and divided by the same difference. This is price minus UVC. So Dinesh says 720,000. That is exactly correct. Okay. So that is how many bottles of shampoo Megan has to sell to Walmart to make $1.5 million profit. Questions? Okay, I have another question that you might see on the exam. I'm not going to solve it for you guys now. You solve it. And if you have any problems, you get in touch with me. You know how to get in touch with me. There's a phone number. You can WhatsApp me and we can connect that way. So this is another example of target return pricing. Jason rents rooms in his hotel for an average of $200 per night. The variable cost per room rented is $120. His fixed costs are $1 million per month and his target profit is $200,000 per month. Assume Jason rents room for 30 days in a month. For Jason to earn his target profit, he will need to rent out blank rooms per day. Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Is it D? Is it E? All right, so let's move forward and let's look at other things. And if we have time at the end, maybe I'll come back to this. So let's move forward. Okay. Now we'll put the manager's hat on and we'll ask a question: how to set a price? Is it on a product or for a product? Okay, how to set a price for a product? Well, you need to do 4 things. Establish pricing objectives, and we are done with this. We talked about pricing objectives. So you choose your pricing objective. We also need to estimate demand, costs, and profits, and we are done with this to some extent, as far as we can go in a marketing class like this. We just talked about demand, profit, margin analysis, all those kinds of things. Now what we have to do is we have to choose a pricing strategy, and then we can fine-tune the base price. So let's look at pricing strategies. Okay, so here we go. Pricing strategies. So, pricing strategies, you can come up with prices on the basis of cost, intuitively very obvious. You can come up with prices on the basis of what your competitors are charging, makes perfect sense. But sometimes it is what's known as value-based pricing, which is basically something very vague, if you will. Okay, value-based pricing, something that is very vague. Okay, so let me, can we copy? I don't think we can copy this. Copy an image. No, we cannot. Okay, so basically, let me do this. Okay, hold on. Let me stop sharing. Give me 1 second. Okay, hold on. Copy. Okay. All right, so that is done. Hold on, guys. Converting. Okay, I am there. Okay. Right. So this is where we were, and no, actually we were right here. Okay. So we talked about cost-based pricing strategy, and then competitor-based and value-based. So let's look at first cost-based pricing strategy. Okay. Let's oops, this and then this cost-based pricing strategy, and then we'll talk about value-based and competitor-based. We know what it is. All right. So here we go, folks. So cost, these are the options you have in terms of cost-based pricing. First one is known as cost plus pricing. Okay, this is where you add an amount or a percentage to the cost of the product. So when we had our first house built, the only house that we had built, and then I said never again because too many decisions to make. Okay, the builder, who was actually a friend of mine, said, okay, here is the cost, and of course the cost is within a range, and here is my fee. Okay, so what he did was, okay, his name was Vijay, he added a certain fee to the cost of building the house. So his was a cost plus pricing strategy. Sometimes, architects say you have to give me 2% of the price of the cost of the house, basically for designing and making sure that basically it takes shape the way I want it and to take shape, that is designing and consulting. So cost plus pricing is a pretty straightforward method to understand the concept of how to add a certain amount to the cost of the product. The second option you have is known as markup pricing. Okay, see this markup, you can express this markup as a percentage of cost, and you can express this markup as a percentage of selling price. So let me give you an example. So let's say, can you see this that I'm holding in my hand? This is a clicker that I use when I'm using Zoom and PowerPoint. Okay, so let's suppose that the cost of this clicker, I'm a retailer, I buy it at $8, that's my cost price, and my selling price for this is $12. Okay, so I'm buying it at 8, I'm selling it at 12. So what's my markup on this particular product? I'm buying it at $8, I'm selling it at $12. What is my markup on this?
$4.
$4. So my markup is $4. You with me? All right, now let us look at this. When the markup is expressed as a percentage of cost, markup is $4. You with me? What's the cost? Cost $8. Okay, so what is the markup? 4 over 8, the markup as a percentage of cost is 50%. Good? But when I express the same markup as a percentage of selling price, see what happens. It is 4 over here. What's the selling price?
$12.
Just verbalize. Don't text. $12. Okay. So it is $12. So percentage of selling price, the markup is approximately 33%. You see, two ways of expressing the same number, $4 markup. Sometimes when you're talking to a prospective buyer, you might want to, and you're not technically lying, but you say, well, our markup is 33%. Not a whole lot. And if the buyer is smart, the buyer is going to ask you, is it a markup over price, selling price, or is it a markup over cost? Then you have to be honest to say, oh, it's selling price. So I'm going to go, okay, so what's your markup over cost? 50%. Now I'm going to go, that's too high. I'm not going to pay you 50% over cost. That's how negotiations happen. Questions? Good. The third method is known as strange name. I don't know why, don't ask me why. It's called keystoning method. This is where the markup is 100% over cost. So what was the cost over here, folks? The cost was?
$8.
$8. So if your price is basically 2 times 8, okay? If your price is $16, or let's do it this way so that there's no confusion, $16, you have used the keystoning strategy for determining price. But here is the interesting thing. Formula price is, if it is 1.5, let's say 0.5 times your cost, it's formula pricing. If it's 3 times your cost, it's formula pricing. If it's 4 times your cost, it's formula pricing. So keystoning is a subset of formula pricing where the price is 2 times the cost. Any other relationship between price and cost, it is known as formula pricing. Why this distinction? I have no idea. Is there this distinction? Yes, there is, as you can see. Any questions? Okay, so now let's talk about, and don't Google, okay? So the fun will be lost. So here is a watch. I can't even pronounce the name. It's like Patek Philippe or something like that. Okay, So this is a watch, kind of regular looking watch with 1, 2, 3 buttons. Okay. And the watch that I'm wearing, it also has those 3 buttons. Okay. Any idea what the price is for this watch? Could be. Without Googling. I mean, who's wearing the most expensive watch in this class? Let me see how brave you are. Announce the price of your watch.
$90,000.
No, your watch. Are you wearing a $90,000 watch?
No, no, sir, no. I'm just
So what's the most expensive watch in this room? Maybe a couple of $100, who knows? But here we go, folks. The price of this Patek Philippe is $280,000, and they are more expensive watches. So how do you sell this watch? How do you price it at 280 and expect people to buy this watch? It doesn't look like it's from the moon or someplace. It looks very regular, even though you do have a picture of a moon over here. Can you sell this watch on the basis of, oh, it has alligator skin band and then it has 3 buttons? And the face has 3 moons or 1 moon over here and it gives you perfect time and it has date, everything. No, you're going to sell a watch for 280,000 based on these rational arguments. So what they have done is they've used value-based pricing, and look at this, what they're saying. It says you never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. So they're marketing this thing as an heirloom piece. As an heirloom piece, something that you leave for the next generation. Now, I'm certainly not in this market because I have 2 sons. So if I were to buy 2 of these, that would be $560,000. Okay. And, you would have to kill me to get that kind of money out of me if I have that money, inheritance watch. Yes. Okay. So value-based pricing, it happens. When you look at Louis Vuitton, and I have, on numerous occasions talked about their little blue, the purse that they sell for $45,000. You cannot actually, literally, you cannot fit $45,000 in that bag, cash. It is so small, but it's $45,000. It's Louis Vuitton. You carry it, and you better make sure that the brand name shows on the outside when you're walking around like this, so people know it's Louis Vuitton. Okay, so that's how it is, value-based pricing. Okay. So Dare, when you get married, it might be coming your way, Louis Vuitton. She might take you to the local Louis Vuitton store and kind of just point in the direction of that blue bag. Okay, so be careful. Don't even drive by Louis Vuitton stores. Okay, all right. So let's move forward and let's talk about pricing strategy. You're looking forward to buying a $45,000, purse? Wow, man! Adopt me as your grandfather. You must be rich. Nigeria, oil money. Okay, let's move forward because I know I won't be able to finish. Pricing strategy, new products. Okay. Oh my God. I mean, this is the unbelievable. This fault comes over here. This thing goes under this. Likewise. Okay. Anyways. Okay. So you have 2 options when you're introducing new products. Remember, when I talked about product life cycle and I said, in the introduction stage, you can go high or you can go low. This is what I was talking about. You can go with a price skim at the top strategy, where you set high prices at the introductory stage for a variety of reasons. One reason could be, as the drug industry says, you're in pharmacy sciences, to recover research and development money as quickly as possible. It also could be the Louis Vuitton strategy to basically project a certain type of an image. So you set high prices at the introductory stage to recover your research and development costs as quickly as possible, to project a certain image, for example, exclusive image, whatever it is, you go in at the high end of the marketplace, the price spectrum. You're here. Penetration pricing, on the other hand, is you set low prices at the introductory stage right here, and you go in after the mass market. The idea is to gain deep market penetration. penetration pricing strategy. Okay, so when we talk about pharmaceutical products and how high they are, I think in the US, these pharmaceutical products are patented for I think 17 years. Okay, and the argument that the pharmaceutical companies give is that well, we have invested so much money into research and development of this particular drug that we need to recover that money, and then we can open it up for others to kind of sell these products, our generic products. But the problem here is that in the US, actually, most of the research and development money is actually taxpayer money, my money. Okay, so it's not that they're getting money from who knows where out of their own pocket, and then they're spending it on research and development. So it's our money, but that's the argument. What's interesting is that anytime you take government money, you have to listen to the whims and fancies of the government. So Pfizer says that the COVID medication that they have come up with, actually no government money was spent on that. So they were able to kind of basically do whatever they wanted to in terms of developing the drug and marketing the drug and so on and so forth. So there was no government influence, and that was very important because this was the election season and things could have been manipulated basically to, who knows, introduce it before it was safety tested to the fullest extent. Anyways, let's go into politics. Let's not get there. But price skimming versus penetration pricing. Okay, so how do you choose between the two? Well, you look at these 6 criteria, that's plural, as opposed to criterion, which is singular. You look at the nature of demand. We talked about this. If demand is inelastic, that is, consumers are not that sensitive to your price or changes in price, you go at the higher end. People will buy Louis Vuitton, those that are in the target market. People will buy, this Patek Philippe, because they're rich folks. They're not price sensitive. But if the demand is inelastic, if the demand is elastic, then go with penetration pricing. Likewise, we talked about economies of scale. You can produce in mass quantities. If that's absent, you're producing Rolls-Royce, go with skimming. If you're producing Hondas and General Motors and Ford, you can go with penetration pricing, for example. Rate of technological change. In the old days when we had desktop computers, anything that came out new was at $3,000. Okay, and technology would quickly change and the price would kind of fall, and the next one coming out would be at $3,000. Same with laptops right now or iPhones right now. Technology changes very quickly, so quickly recover the money. So when you go into the market, you charge high price. But then if the rate of technology change in your industry is low, you're making cookies or chewing gums, then you have to use penetration pricing, or you can choose to use penetration pricing. We talked about number 4 also. If your objective is to recover your investments very quickly, pharmaceutical companies, go with skimming. If that is not an issue, you have deep pockets, you can wait it out. You go in the direction of penetration pricing. Entry barriers, we also talked about this. Pharmaceutical industry, 17 years, patent. Or it could be any other industry. If the entry barrier is substantial, go with price skimming, charge a high price. If there are no entry barriers, people can easily replicate this slap your mama thing. It's nothing else but salt and pepper and garlic. I can come up with my formula, come up with an interesting package and sell it. You should go with penetration pricing. And number 6 is related to number 2. So when you have limited production capacity, Rolls-Royce, these leather seats that go into Rolls-Royce, they're stitched by hand, limited production capacity. Then you go with price skimming. If it's extensive production capacity, which gives you economy of scale, you go with penetration pricing. All right, so let's move forward from pricing strategy, new product pricing, to discounts and allowances. Okay, so here we go. Again, everything shows up at the same time, which is bad, and I'll keep on complaining till the last day. Anyways, so when we talk about discounts and allowances, we won't talk about this thing. We won't talk about this. We'll talk about the first 3. Often companies will give you, or manufacturers will give you quantity discounts. Some of these could be cumulative quantity discounts, which are given to keep customers loyal. Some of these could be non-cumulative quantity discounts, which basically are done or given to encourage large orders. So let me explain these things. So let's say I'm the manufacturer of this particular spicy salt, slap your mama. And let's assume that Suman is my wholesaler in India. So he buys these from me. Okay. So what I've told Suman is that, look, you keep buying from me and I'll keep track of how many you're buying in January, how many you're buying in February, how many you're buying in March, how many you're buying in April, May, June, July, August, all the way till December 2021. Okay. And then I'll add up all your purchases and I'll give you a discount on the entire volume that you have purchased in 2021. If you have purchased more than, let's say, 100,000 of these salt boxes, then I'm going to give you a 10% discount. If you have bought 150,000 of these, I'm going to give you a 15% discount. If you have bought more than 200,000, I'm going to give you a 25% discount. Okay, so I don't want Suman to go to some other place and buy similar salt and sell that salt. I want Suman to come back to me every month and place orders. And the basically, I'll keep adding those things. And at the end of the year, I'm going to give him a discount on the entire volume that he has purchased from me. But, there could be graded discounts, for example, based on whether he has bought 100,000 units, 150,000 units, 200,000 units, 500,000 units, but I'm going to give him a discount on the entire volume purchased. So any questions about cumulative discounts? You add up, or I'll add up everything that Suman is buying from me, and at the end of the year, I'm going to give him a discount. So how would this non-cumulative discount work? Well, in this case, I'm going to give Suman a discount every time he buys from me. I'm not going to keep track of what's happening the entire year, because this is a seasonal product. This only sells in summer. Okay, so non-cumulative discount, but over summer 3-4 months he'll order from me 3-4 times. But I'm not going to add those up. But every time he orders something from me, I'll give him a discount. Why am I doing this? Well, because I actually am shipping these from the US. Suman is selling these in India, and I want to basically rent a large container and send him a container full of merchandise. That way my transportation cost will be cheaper. Instead of renting 1/4 of a container, let's say 1/6 of a container, the rates are proportionally higher. So the idea here is I'm encouraging Suman to give me large orders. So each time he orders, I give him a discount. But the discount is again a function of whether he's ordering 10, whether he's ordering 20, whether he's ordering 50, I cannot even write here, 50, whether he's ordering 100, or whether he is ordering 1 million. So he's going to get a discount based on the volume of order each time he orders from me. So that's quantity discounts. All right. Then we have trade discounts. So let's look at trade discounts. And right now it's not going to tell you anything. Don't raise your hand and say, I don't understand it. It's okay not to understand it. Trade discounts. Trade discounts are reductions in the list price of a product offered by the manufacturer to the channel members, to the wholesaler and the retailer, which sells to the consumer. Okay, so the manufacturer offers these trade discounts to these two entities, okay, the retailer and the wholesaler, for performing marketing functions. The wholesaler is storing the product, sending it to the retailer is selling it to the consumer, so the manufacturer gives these discounts. So we'll work on a trade discount problem in 2 minutes. But before that, let's talk about cash discounts. Oftentimes you'll see on your invoice it says 2/10 net 30. What does it mean? If you've taken accounting courses, you should know, but let me tell you what it is. It says, I will give you a 2% discount. 2% discount if you pay your bill within 10 days. Within 10 days of receiving the product, within 10 days of the date on this invoice, whatever that is, it's between the two of you. I'll give you a 2% discount if you pay within 10 days, but you have to pay everything within 30 days, the full amount. If you don't, then interest will start to accumulate. So that's the idea of 2/10 net 30. Questions? Very good. Again, what? So what did you not understand? Tell me that, because I can tell you 5 times, but if I don't know what you didn't understand, I won't be able to hit the right button.
Sorry, the two/10 net 30. Sorry, I wasn't listening when you were. I was trying to jot some things down.
Then we'll talk about this after class. If you
No,
weren't
no, no.
listening, then I'll yeah. Okay, because I know I'm running out of time. I need to finish a few more slides. If you're not listening, that's a whole different ballgame. Okay. So let's move forward and let's look at this trade discount now. Okay. Trade discount. A manufacturer offers trade discounts of 30% and 10% to the channel members. So I told you manufacturer is here, the wholesaler, the retailer, and then you have the consumer. To the channel members, retailer and the wholesaler, for an electronic gaming system which retails for $200. How much should the retailer pay the wholesaler? And how much should the wholesaler pay the manufacturer? Any idea how to solve this problem? So the manufacturer offers trade discounts to 30%. The first number, this one, goes to the channel member at the bottom of the channel. So the retailer gets 30%. The second number over here goes to the next one in the channel of distribution as you move up the channel of distribution. So the wholesaler gets 10% discount or commission. Any idea how to solve this problem? So let's say I'm the consumer, okay? And let's say Dare is the retailer, Suman is the wholesaler. Okay? And let's say Dinesh is the manufacturer. Malli Kumar and Dinesh are partners. You with me? So I'm the consumer, I give Dare $200. He's selling it to me, right? I'm giving Dare $200. So how much money does Dare keep for his services and give back the wholesaler? How much money does it give to the wholesaler? Somebody quickly. 30% is his commission from 200. Guys, 30% is his commission, $60. Holy Kumar. So Dare keeps $60 in his pocket and he gives $140 to the wholesaler. You with me? Now, what is wholesaler's commission on that $140? What is wholesaler's commission on that $140? Look, 10%, $14. So the wholesaler keeps $14, and then 140 minus 14, the wholesaler gives the manufacturer $126. So that's how you solve this problem. It's very simple as long as you can set up the channel of distribution. So on the exam, when you get a problem like this, write manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer, and consumer, and then write the percentage, the discounts that each one of them will get. The first discount in the problem will go to basically the one at the bottom in terms of channel of distribution, the retailer. The second one will go to the one above, the wholesaler, and the problem can be solved this way. So here we go, folks. This is how you solve it. The retailer pays the wholesaler $140 because this is, this I pay 200 to Dare. Dare keeps his commission of 30%, which is $60, and passes on 140 to Suman, who's the wholesaler. Suman basically keeps his commission of 10%, which is $14, and 140 minus 14 is 126, and he passes this on to Malli Kumar and Dinesh. Okay, so let's move forward and let's look at the next slide. At least we'll have to cover 2-3 more slides. So we have 5 minutes. I might go over 5 minutes today. Okay, so let's talk about geographic pricing policies. We have FOB shipping point pricing, which is free on board shipping point pricing. Free on board. So let me tell you a quick story and then we'll move forward. So I actually I love African artifacts. Okay, masks, all these various other things. And actually, I have rooms that basically, are decorated that way. So I went to this trade show and, I was walking by this stall that was, basically selling or marketing these African artifacts. And I said, look, if I want to get into this business, if I want to sell these artifacts in the US, how does shipping work, with you guys? So they said, oh, we use FOB shipping point pricing, free on board shipping point pricing, which means from their factories, they're going to load it onto the trucks or maybe onto the ships for free. Okay, free on board the truck, on board the ship. After that, I own those products in transition, ownership. I own the risk or assume the risks involved in transporting those products from, let's say, West Africa to New Orleans. We used to live in Louisiana at that time. So, I have to pay for insurance and all these things. And I also pay for all freight charges. You see, the free on board, the loading part was free, but not the shipping part. So I have to pay all shipping charges. I have to pay all insurance charges, and I'm assuming all risks because I'm the owner of all the merchandise. That's the idea of FOB, shipping point pricing. Okay, then we have this concept of delivered pricing. First one is uniform delivered pricing. So let me ask Suman. Suman, let's say you're sending greetings cards, not electronically, you're mailing greeting cards to, let's say, an address in Delhi, to another address in Kolkata, another address in Mumbai, another address in Chennai. Same card, exact same card, regular mail. How much would you be spending on stamps? Just give me a ballpark figure.
50 rupees. So $1.
Okay, 50 rupees. So regardless of whether this address is across the street from you in New Delhi, or whether it is in Kolkata, or whether it's in Chennai or Mumbai, it's going to be exactly the same amount, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's uniform delivered pricing, which is also known as postage stamp pricing. So regardless of where it is shipped, the delivery charges are the same. On the flip side, we have zone pricing. So what we might say in the US, if we're shipping the furniture to the east of Mississippi, the furniture delivery charges are $300. If we're shipping it to the west of Mississippi, $500. If we're shipping it to Hawaii and Alaska, the shipping charges are $1,000. Zone pricing. If you get on, let's say, Fab India, and they have a furniture division now, and you look at the furniture you want to buy, the first thing they tell you is put in your PIN code to see if we can deliver. If they can deliver, my gut feeling is that the delivery charges are a function of where you are located in India, which zone you're located in India. The farther you're from the base, the more they charge. Okay, which brings us to base point pricing. Okay, so Amazon.com, somebody orders a phone from Amazon, and he lives in Seattle. Somebody orders the same phone and he lives in Arizona, and somebody orders another phone and she lives in Virginia. And essentially the phones are actually being shipped from different warehouses, different locations. But in this case, what happens is the price is not being calculated from those specific locations, but from a chosen location. So the shipping charges, if you have to pay, if you're not a Prime member, will be calculated as if the product is being shipped from Seattle, Washington. Okay? Same with crude oil. Whether I buy it from Nigeria or Saudi Arabia or any other OPEC countries, the shipping charges might be calculated, and I'm not 100% sure on this, as if the oil were being shipped from Saudi Arabia. Whether you buy it from Nigeria, whether you buy it from any other country, but that's basically base point pricing. It's shipping charges are calculated from a particular base. And I have another example, but I'm not going to go there. But finally, we have freight absorption pricing, which is free shipping and delivery. There is, folks, no free lunch. It's absorbing the cost, but it feels nice to hear free shipping and handling, freight absorption pricing. So let's move forward. And this is an example of base point pricing. I'm not going to go into details because we don't have time. Let's look at this last overhead, and I think we'll end it over here. We have this concept of loss leader pricing. Loss leader pricing is basically when you price your product below the cost of the product. When you price your product below the cost of the product, you're losing money on that. Why do they do that? For example, Black Friday, some products are priced below cost. They do that because they want to generate excitement among the shoppers. They want people to come in, buy those products, and in addition to those products, buy other products that are priced at the regular price. But see, when you choose a loss leader item, you need to make sure that you take care of three things. Number one, that most people are likely to buy these products. It has a wide appeal. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Second is that it cannot be stored or inventoried, because if you can store these things, basically people will buy them and store in the garage, and you're going to lose a lot of money. So these are most likely to be perishable products, most likely, not always likely. And third, they need to be fairly well known, these products, in terms of their prices. Only when they're fairly well known, people can immediately figure out, hey, this is a good price. It used to be sold at 100, they're selling it for 25. This is a good price. Okay. So when you're choosing a loss leader item, ladies and gentlemen, make sure it has a wide appeal, make sure it cannot be stored, and make sure it is fairly well known. Finally, well, no, not finally, the next one we'll talk about is mixed bundling. It's the practice of selling two complementary products at a price which is less than the sum total of the individual prices. So I give the washer and the dryer example over here. So let's say a washer costs $799 and the dryer costs, let's say, $699. So what's the total? Somebody give me a quick addition over here. So it's 8%, $1,500, $2 less. If you buy them separately, you're paying $1,498. Are you with me? It's kind of like going to McDonald's and saying, I'm going to have number one. But then the advertiser might say, if you buy these together, instead of $1,498, you will pay us $1,398. So that's the idea of mixed bundling. Practice of selling two complementary products, washer and dryer, at a price, $1,398, which is less than the sum total of their individual prices, which is $1,498. Questions? All right, then we have unbundling. And I have the airline example. So can somebody tell me what this unbundling is in terms of prices, airlines? When you fly in India, what are some of the things that are unbundled?
Pay extra for a check-in baggage or for meals.
Okay, so
or
you
for
pay extra for baggage fee, extra, right? In India, for example, on planes, you have to, in some cases, you have to pay for food, right? That's not included in the price of in the fare. So essentially, they have unbundled this thing, and in the process, they have increased their prices. Okay, so they used to maybe do all these things for $100 now, but now what they've done is they have kept the fare at $90, 90 rupees, and now baggage and handling is 15, so that's 105. Food is 5. Okay, that's basically 110. So instead of 100, they're making more money, 110. Questions? One final slide. This is the last slide. There's nothing to say over here. You need to understand some legal issues in pricing. Price fixing is not good. You can go to jail, at least in this part of the world. It's a violation of FTC and Sherman Acts. We talked about this before, and it's illegal per se. Price discrimination is not legal. It's violation of Robinson-Patman Act. And predatory pricing, which is intentionally charging very low prices or prices lower than cost to drive your competitors out of business. That's also illegal. So thank you very much. That's all I have, or I can include. And your exam is on the 19th. Please make sure you go and you do the evaluations. Maybe I should send you an email to remind you. I don't know when the deadline is, but please do that. In between now and the 19th, again, text me first and we can connect. And, if need be, I can set up basically an online arrangement for a couple of hours where I can come in and we can, you can ask me questions. I can answer those questions. So that can be done. But, please text me. It's a lot easier to communicate that way. Thank you very much. All right, so let's stop this recording.